So the female reproductive system, as the male reproductive system was having hormones, testosterone, this is also having the hormones that are secreted, that are estrogen and progesterone. So it is under the control of these two hormones, estrogen and progesterone. Ovaries, they are located laterally in the female reproductive system. So these ovaries, they are going to produce the ova or the egg. Then the another function for the female reproductive system is support and protection of the developing embryo, as whole process of fertilization and the growth of the fetus, it is going to take place in the uterus. So support and protect the development and all the developmental changes, they are occurring in the uterus, and give birth to the new baby. So it is acting as a passage for the birth of the baby. So if you see the female reproductive system, this is the coronal section that has been taken for a full uterus, fallopian tube, ovary, cervix and the vagina. So this coronal section is showing all the organs, major organs, internal organs. This is cervix, vagina. This whole is the uterus. Laterally it is having the projecting tubes, which are called as the fallopian tubes. At the end of the fallopian tubes, the ovaries are located. So these are the major organs. What is the purpose of the cervix? There is an endocervix, there is exocervix. So this cervix is a continuation of the body of the uterus. So this helps as the passage for the birth of the baby. This is called as the cervical canal. These are external genitalia in the female reproductive system. So it is divided into external and internal. So if in the lithotomy position, we can see the perineum. And in the perineum, we have to identify the different structures. This is the mons pubis, clitoris. Then you have the connective tissue which is covered with the skin, labia majora, labia minora. And what does it contain? They are containing the Bartholin glands. So if you come from upwards to downwards, this is mons pubis, clitoris, then there is a separate orifice for the urethra, and posteriorly there is orifice for the anus. So where are the ovaries located? Lateral to the uterus. And where the uterus is located? Pelvic region. So it is one of the pelvic organ. So if you specify the location of the uterus, it is sandwiched between the bladder and the rectum. So there is a space between the bladder and the uterus, then the uterus, posterior part and the rectum. So those spaces, they are called as the pouches. One is between the bladder, first from anterior to posterior if I go, then anteriorly you will find the bladder. Then the posterior surface of bladder and the anterior surface of uterus, they are having the pouch that is called as the uterovesical pouch. Then coming to the posterior surface of the uterus and the anterior surface of rectum, there is again a space that is called as a pouch, that is called as a recto-uterine pouch. Why they are called as pouches? Because they are covered with the peritoneum. Those spaces, they are covered with the peritoneum. So they have a space which is called as a pouch. So in this picture we can understand how the ovaries, they are producing the egg and they are taken up by the fallopian tubes. So fallopian tubes, the end that is towards the ovary, they are called as the fimbrial end, which have finger-like projections. So egg from the ovary will be taken up in the fimbria of the fallopian tube. Then they will travel the fallopian tube and the fertilization will occur in the fallopian tube. So this is the process how these uterine tubes, they are helping the movement of the egg towards the uterus. So they are bearing the lot of cilia, so that the beating of those cilia, they are leading to the movement of the egg towards the uterine cavity. So in this picture, this is more of histological picture where we can see the different follicles. So directly the follicles, they are not taken up. first the primary follicle is formed, then the secondary follicle is formed, then tertiary or the Graafian follicle is formed, then there is a rupture of the Graafian follicle and the egg is released and the corpus luteum is released. So the egg will be taken up here in the fimbrial end and it will reach into the fallopian tube, and after fertilization it is going into the uterine cavity. Now what are the different parts of the uterus and different layers of the uterus? So there is a fundal part of the uterus. In the stomach I also discussed the fundus of the stomach. So in the uterus also there is a fundus. So if you draw an imaginary line that is passing from the two fallopian tubes, the region lying above these imaginary line will be forming the fundus. So this is the fundus of the uterine cavity. This is the uterine cavity and this is the cervix part. What are the different layers of the uterus? Endometrium, myometrium, perimetrium. So what does the myometrium contains? Muscles. What does perimetrium contains? It is the outer fibrous covering. Then internally endometrium. What is the changes that will take place in the endometrium? Does the endometrium keep changes? Yes. What are the different phases? The glands, they become tortuous. So they have simple tubular glands which become tortuous as the phase enhances. So this endometrium is having the glands as well as the more of blood. As the glands are becoming tortuous, there are more of the blood vessels. They are towards the tortuous glands. And when does it occur? There are different phases of menstrual cycle: proliferative phase, secretory phase. So when does the glands become tortuous? In the proliferative or in the secretory phase? Proliferative. और कोई? किसी फेज में तो होता ही है. Yes, anyone else? प्रोलिफरेटिव फेज में क्या होगा? शेडिंग होगी? नो. proliferation of the glands. Then secretory phase? Secretion. So glands are becoming tortuous in the secretory phase. The lecture was very small, so just a general introduction.